5.5 Idealism. In philosophy, idealism refers to a system of thoughts in which the object of external perception is held to consist of ideas. Idealism holds that the mind plays a key role in the constitutions of the world as it experienced. In the history of thought, you can discern different forms of applications and idealism. Its most radical form has been rejected because it is equivalent to solipsism. Solipsism is the view that all reality is nothing but the activities of one's own mind, and that is reality, nothing exists but one's own self. Idealists generally recognize the existence of the external or the neutral world, natural world, and do not claim that it can be reduced to the mere process of thinking. They believe that the mind is active and capable of producing and sustaining modes of being that would not have existed otherwise, such as law, religion, art, and mathematics. See box 5.4 for the ideas of George Berkeley. Box 5.4 Idealism and George Berkeley. The 18th century Irish philosopher George Berkeley is closely identified with the idealist philosophy. He believed that all aspects of everything of which we are conscious are actually reducible to the ideas present in the mind. For example, the idea of a chair or a cow already exists in our minds. Therefore, we recognize the chair or a cow when find it. Thus, the observation does not conjure to the external objects, chair or cow, into the existence. In fact, Berkeley held that the true ideas of the external objects are caused directly by God. You may have contrast idealism with realism, which is a doctrine that universals or general ideas have objective existence and matter as an object of perception has a real existence. In this sense, idealism is a theory that posits the primacy of spirit, mind, or language over matter. It includes claiming that thoughts has a crucial role in making the world the way it is. In other words, thought and the world are made for one another, or they make one another. The 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant further refined idealism through his critical inquiry into the limits of possible knowledge. Kant held that the mind forces the world we perceive to take the shape of space and time. Hegel thought that history must be rational in something significantly like the way science is. You can say that the idealism denotes the belief that abstract or mental entities have some sort of reality independent of the world. Plato thought that all properties and objects we could think or of must have some such independent existence. Confusingly, the kind of idealism was once termed realism. Immanuel Kant a priori categories. As pointed out earlier, Kant's, for a biographical note on him, see box number 5.5, aim was to move beyond the traditional dichotomy between rationalism and empiricism. The rationalist had tried to show that we can understand the world by careful using of reason. This guarantees the undoubtedly of our knowledge, but left serious questions about its practical content. The empiricist, on the other hand, had argued that all of our knowledge must be firmly grounded in experience. The practical content was thus scrutinized, but it turned out that we could be certain of very little. Both approaches had failed, Kant argued, because both were premised on the same mistaken assumption. To correct this, he wrote this book, The Critique of Pure Reasons. In this book, Kant explained his ideas about the foundations of our knowledge of the physical world. He had a great faith in the moral freedom in human beings' ability to choose what is right. Box number 5.5, Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant was born in Königsberg, Germany. He rarely even left the small town that he lived in. He grew in the background of pious religious upbringings. Though he did not attend church in his later years, he kept his German puritanical upbringing intact, yet he could not isolate himself from the skeptical current of that time. The men who he later aimed to refute, and most of all Hume, influenced Kant. One biographer, Durant, says that Kant's life passed like the most regular or of regular verbs: rising, coffee drinking, writing, lecturing, dining, and walking. During these quiet years, he wrote on many things, physical as well as metaphysical. He wrote about planets, Earth, and volcanoes, and on anthropology and even pedagogy. In his book, The Critique of Pure Reason, Kant is not attacking the pure reason as much as he is highlighting its limitation. He, in fact, wants to exalt pure reasons to transcendental level without the corrupting elements of the senses. He is not totally against the role that the senses plays or not his disowning reason. What he does is to combine both empiricist and rationalist element. How does he achieve this? He makes distinctions between where our knowledge originates and what kind of knowledge it is. Understanding these distinctions is important in order to follow Kant's expectations. Box 5.6 Analytic and synthetic propositions and a priori and posteriori knowledge. In an analytical proposition, the predicate is contained in the subject. For example, the cricket balls are round. In a synthetic proposition, the subject and the predicate are independent of each other. To explain further, Kant maintained that a priori knowledge comes purely from reasoning independent of experience. For example, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 is an example of a priori knowledge. A posteriori knowledge is based on the sensory experience. For example, the statement, the bird is sitting on the tree, is based on the sensory experience. Kant went on to explain exactly how the thought process worked. According to him, we have come intuitive categories such as space and time, which are absolute and independent of and preceding sense impressions. On the questions of Berkeley's problem of whether we will ever know the reality or the essence of objects, Kant has no problem with the existence of objects. As Osborne expresses Kant's position, the mere existence of my own consciousness proves that the existence of objects outside me. But Kant sets limit to the knowledge and distinguishes between phenomenon and noumena. Box 5.7 Phenomena and noumena. According to Kant, it is vital always to distinguish between the distinct realm of phenomena and noumena. All of our synthetic a priori judgments apply only to the realm of phenomena, while phenomena are the appearances which constitute our experience. Noumena are the things themselves which constitute reality, or what he calls ding and sing, the thing in itself. Since the thing in itself would be definition be entirely independent of our experience of it, we are utterly ignorant of the noumenal realm. In Kant's view, the most fundamental laws of nature, like the truths of mathematics, are knowable precisely because they make no effort to describe the world as it really is, but rather prescribe the structure of world as we experience it. By applying the pure forms of sensible institutions and the pure concepts of the understanding, we achieve a systematic view of phenomenal realm, but learn nothing of the noumenal realm. Mathematics and the sciences are certainly true of the phenomena. Only metaphysics claims to be instruct us about the noumena. Let us at this point complete reflections and actions 5.2 for full grasping of Kant's theory idea of noumena. Reflection and action 5.2. The noumena according to Kant are beyond our realm of knowledge. In the light of this statement, answer the following questions. Questions. Do you think religion can be considered as noumena, as it is beyond the scope of explanation? Do you feel that the scientific explanations are inadequate to explain religious phenomena? Is there a contradiction between the scientific explanations and matters of faith? How do you explain the position of a scientist who believes in supernatural events like religious miracles. So far, we have discussed the ideas which are subsumed within the positivist outlook for understanding social reality, as you have already gathered in the units of Block 1 of the book. Now, not everyone agreed with the assumptions discussed above. Many philosophers searched for meaning in observations they made. They focused on the process by which we establish the meanings in phenomena. From them, important issue concerns the way we come to know about what is happening in the world outside ourselves. Phenomenology is a school of thought which has influenced profoundly the development of new approaches of making sense of social reality. Let us discuss in the next section the main ideas of philosophy of this school. 5.6 Phenomenology Bracketing Experience. The limited understanding of the phenomenal world that one was able to obtain using the approaches discussed in the various sections of this unit so far gave impetus to the search for new approaches. Phenomenology provided inspirations to such seekers. Phenomenology treats consciousness as a given datum upon which we may build the foundations of claims to knowledge. Here is a presumption of an unmediated access to the consciousness. The focus is on explaining the nature of practical consciousness. The intention is to reject a priori constructions and pay attention to the desperation of experience. This involves a description of the physical actions of the actors as well as their intentions and purposes, the way they make classification, attribute senses and meanings to their world. In many ways, these ideas of phenomenology found full expressions in ethnomethodology. Let us find out where these ideas came from. In the late 19th century, a group of Austrian philosophers grew dissatisfied with the excessive subjectivity fostered by the philosophy of the late German idealist. The Austrian philosophers were against excessive analysis of experience. Instead of looking for causes and theories, they concentrated on experience as they present themselves to consciousness, without recourse to theory, deduction, or assumptions from other disciplines such as the natural sciences. Franz Brentano was the first scholar to develop the basic approaches of phenomenology. Brentano claimed that the central concerns of philosophy is to understand the nature of and content of awareness in ways that illuminate the distinctions between the mental and non-mental. In his book Psychology from an Empirical Standpoint, Brentano proposed that every mental act be understood to have a doubly significant representational function. The function is to both designate itself reflectively and phenomenal objective intentionally. Indeed, this distinction between acts and their objects is the crucial distinction for Brentano, since intentionality is the mark of the mental. One and the same phenomenal objects can be identified, intended by mental acts of different modalities like believing, imaging, etc. Brentano held that although each intentional act is itself subjective, its intention is an objective thing or fact in the world. A discipline of Brentano, Edmund Hussler, carried forward Brentano's ideas, and we will now discuss Husserl's contributions to the development of the new approach. Edmund Hussler. 1. Brentano heavily influenced the German philosopher Edmund Hussler. Hussler introduced the term phenomenology in his book, A General Introduction to Pure Phenomenology, and held that the task of phenomenology was to study essences, such as the essence of emotions. Husserl stated that only the essence of conscious structures are the proper subject matter of phenomenology. As formulated by Husserl, phenomenology is the study of the structures of consciousness that enable consciousness to refer to objects outside. Such a study requires reflections on the content of the mind to the exclusion of everything else. Husserl noted that phenomenological reflection does not presuppose that anything exists, but rather amounts to a bracketing of existence. that is, setting aside the questions of the real existence of the contemplated object. What Husserl gathered when he contemplated the content of his mind were such acts as remembering, desiring, and perceiving, and the abstract content of these acts, which Husserl called meanings. These meanings, he claimed, enabled an act to be directed towards an object under a certain aspect, and such directedness called intentionality, he held to be the essence of consciousness. Transcendental phenomenology, according to Husserl, was the study of the basic components of the meaning that makes intentionality possible. The question arises whether there were scholars who used phenomenological methods. We take one example of such a researcher. His name is Martin Heidegger. Martin Heidegger, a German philosopher, employed the methods of phenomenology in pursuit of more comprehensive metaphysical goals. In Husserl's full-fledged existentialism, the primary task of philosophy is to understand being itself, not merely our knowledge of itself. Many feel that the Heidegger's philosophy was more of a statement on the existence of modern alienated humankind rather than a philosophical proposition. He felt that the traditional learning focuses on what is, whereas it may be far more illuminating to examine the boundaries of ordinary knowledge by trying to study what is not. Heidegger 1963 held that it was only through the experience of nothingness that you are truly aware of something. For him, traditional logic is no help, since it considers all negation as emanating from something positive. Heidegger proposed that we must abandon logic in order to explore the character of nothing as the background out of which everything emerges. Carefully contemplating nothing in itself, we begin to notice the importance and validity of our own moods. Above all else, nothing is what produces in us a feeling of dread. This deep feeling of dread, Heidegger held, is the most fundamental human clue to the nature and the reality of nothing. Heidegger was making a statement on ontology or existence rather than actually theorizing on knowledge. The phenomenological movement in philosophy had a greater influence on sociology. So sociologists, as Alfred Schutz, have adapted it to promote an understanding of the relationship between the states of individual consciousness and social life. As an approach within sociology, phenomenology seeks to reveal how human awareness is implicated in the production of social action, social situation, and social worlds. Alfred Schutz distilled from Husserl's rather dense writings a sociologically relevant approach. Schutz set about describing how subjective meanings give rise to an apparently objective social world in which the activities of everyday life have a duration or temporality. It comprises a continuity that remains throughout the waking hours of the individual's life. According to Schutz, individual organize intentionality of their activities in terms of their overall priorities. The short note on phenomenology in this unit is just to give you an idea of what has engaged the attention of knowledge seekers besides the issue of empiricism, rationalism, and idealism. 5.7 Conclusion. In this unit, we attempted to present some of the main ideas regarding the theories of knowledge. The influence of these philosophical ideas is wide-ranging. You would have already found references to some of these ideas in the units of Block 1 of the book, and you are likely to encounter them in subsequent units as well. The focus on the salient ideas associated with the quest to make sense of the world around us has hopefully given you an introduction to epistemological issues at the back of methodologies in social science research. Further reading, Nagel, Ernest, 1961, The Structure of Science, Routledge, London, for Problems of Epistemology. This is the end of the Unit 5. Thank you.